A lot of people in Malawi are confused about this recent devaluation, but it's not your fault, it's the government's fault because they didn't explain to you why they did it. What even is devaluation though? It is the deliberate reduction in the value of one currency relative to other currencies. And in effect, what it does is it makes domestically produced goods and services relatively cheaper to foreign consumers, and it makes foreign goods and services more expensive to domestic consumers. Therefore, it makes imports more expensive for the locals and exports more attractive for foreigners. So a devaluation is supposed to do two things. It's supposed to improve your balance of payments, i.e. you're exporting more and importing less. That's why countries like China and Japan like to keep their currencies low. And it's supposed to stimulate the local economy. Okay, imports are now more expensive. What do? We start buying the local alternative, or better yet, we set up a local alternative. And the exports are now cheaper to other countries. Now this is where the problems start mounting up. The first issue is Malawi is not an especially productive economy. Our GDP in 2021 was only $12.63 billion. I know that sounds like a lot, but there were some people, individuals that made more money than that in that year. So to illustrate this, Africa's total economic output per year is about $3.1 trillion. That means Malawi is responsible for about 0.4% of Africa's total economic output. Okay, but that's not the biggest hurdle, is it? All you have to do is make the country more productive. You can put in place the right incentives, make it easier to do business. But do we do that? The other issue is we are too reliant on imports. Basically, everything we consume is imported, even basic things like soap and toothpaste. And if it's not imported, if it's made here, something in its production line is imported. You could say Ufa is made here, but the chigayo, the machine, is not made here. So you need to import something in the production line. So in a country like Malawi, we continue to import despite the fact that imports have become more expensive because there's no alternative. And we also do not export much more despite the devaluation because there's not much to export. So you might wonder two things. One, knowing the state of the Malawian economy, why would the IMF suggest a policy recommendation that would not work, that they know wouldn't work? And two, why would the Malawian government agree to it? I'll answer the second question first. The Malawian government agrees to these policy changes because they are afraid of losing their credit rating or their credit rating getting even worse than it already is. The IMF, it's not so much about the money that they lend in their credit facility, because what we're getting is what, like 184 million over the next 4 years. That's less than what CR7 is getting at Al Nasser. So it's not really about the money, it's about the credit rating, because the IMF is a lender of last resort. So if they won't lend money to you, no one else will. So I go more in depth on that in a YouTube video, on a video on my YouTube, so you can check that out. Now for the first question, why would the IMF recommend policies that they know won't work? It could be a case of cold-blooded capitalism, in that they want things like sugar and tobacco to be cheaper for them to purchase from Malawi. And maybe they want a cheap holiday destination to go to in Malawi. It could be that. We won't rule it out. Or it could be these guys who work for the IMF, they get their master's degree, they get their PhD, they never actually set foot into the countries that they're making these policies for, or they don't spend that much time on the ground. And then they just say, it worked for Japan, it'll work for Malawi, whatever. So it could be exploitation, it could be arrogance. We don't know. At the end of the day, though, you have a government that ultimately agrees to these policy conditions. And I think they don't do any due diligence before agreeing. Because how did Eskom lose 83 billion just through devaluation? Did they not do any kind of risk assessment? Did they not do any kind of cost-benefit analysis? It's very strange. Anyway, that's devaluation. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you do it without creating an environment for the local producers to now take over what was being imported, then you're just going to be in trouble.